Hey, Joe Bernard, Atlantic Community, Southern Porch Homes team. Today is Thursday, March 20th, and the last 72 hours have been rather interesting. Um, Usually, people ask me about real estate all the time. How's the market? What about the rates? And, you know, mundane stuff like that. The last 72 hours has been really interesting, and people want to know answers, and I am here to set the record straight. We don't know the answers yet. The settlement that was proposed on Monday by NAR, the National Association of Realtors, is just that. It's a proposal. The other side hasn't agreed to it. Maybe they have by now, but that hasn't been reported. I don't know. I don't know if it's actually been accepted by the other side. And more importantly, the courts haven't accepted it. So when people are going on saying this is going to happen, I don't know how they know. I don't have a magic 8 ball. Something will happen, I'm sure. Exactly what? I'm not quite sure of what that is yet. But what I do know, as a real estate professional, as a realtor, I'm going to continue to service my clients, and I'm going to continue to get paid for my services, whether they are a seller or whether they're a buyer. And whether it is the seller paying or whether it is the buyer paying. It is not a profession that people do out of the goodness of their heart for free. Now, you may have people who decide that they're going to do a for sale by owner, or buyers who are going to be unrepresented. And they've always had the right to do that. They've always had the right to go to an agent who doesn't charge a certain amount, or does charge a certain amount, both on the buyer side and the seller side. When I'm talking about anything here, it's always going to be in reference to the state of Georgia, because that's where I'm licensed, and that is the state that I know license law on. So when you start hearing these things that the mainstream media is talking about, they're talking it on a national basis, which is wrong in so many ways. One, each state has its own laws that they have to abide by. So just kind of giving it that blanket over the whole country is wrong. Two, it's just a proposed settlement, and they are reporting it as an absolute settlement, and they are reporting money being saved. Well, they don't know. They don't know what money is going to or isn't going to be saved. Like I said, a buyer's agent isn't going to work for free. So somebody's going to have to pay them, or they're not going to work with the buyers, and buyers are going to be unrepresented. I would hate to see buyers be unrepresented, because it is your biggest investment that you make. It's the biggest expense that you will make. And I don't want people to walk into a house and, see all the pretty shiny and not know the nitty gritty. And that's what the agents are there for, to uncover that nitty gritty for you, to point out things, to see if you're okay with something about the house that at first blush you may not notice or think about. It's just that's what we do all day long. So those things come to mind for us. We have the experience. We've been there. We've seen that. I can't tell you how many times people go, oh, that won't happen. I guarantee you it will happen. Just recently in October, we had a closing, and I was on the list side, and the buyers were not going to be moving into the house right away. And we closed, and they weren't going to move in because they were going to do some renovations to the house, and they were staying in a rental. They were going to stay there for a little bit. The buyer's agent did not do a walkthrough the day before closing, which is traditional, what people do, or the morning of, but it was a 12 noon closing, so they didn't do one that morning, nor did they do one the day before. I was there the day before in the morning and closed up everything, and everything looked good. And we had a vendor in there who was working on some things on the outside that I wanted to make sure got done before closing, and it did, and everything looked great. Locked up the house and got to the closing table. We closed, everybody was happy. I get a call 3 hours later when the buyers walked in the house, and a pipe had burst in the house and the house was flooded. That was a mess. If you are unrepresented, both sides are unrepresented, only one side's unrepresented, I can't imagine how that would have ended. That was ugly. It was really ugly. We had two agents, one on each side, and we worked together to figure out what was going to happen and how it was going to happen. I'm happy to say that the buyers moved forward, continued with the home. We got insurance involved. We got everything fixed, and they're in a home that's now newly remodeled. It all ended well, but it was because we had two agents, one on each side, who were representing our clients to the best of our abilities to get things done. And if we don't have that, these things will happen. Sorry about that. My phone was ringing. So it's important to have representation on both sides. And that was a great transaction. Both sides were fantastic with one another. The whole process from listing to the actual sale was fantastic. Everyone was cooperative. But it could have went well as unrepresented seller, unrepresented buyer would have been fine until that day of closing, when everything kind of blew up. Thankfully, having the agents on both sides, we were able to walk everybody through it. And I will say, both agents, we worked for the next 3 months afterwards to get this finished. We didn't get paid anything extra. It was part of our job to work through it, to make sure that both sides were satisfied and happy with the end result. So not that happens every day, but it is something that can happen. It's something that does happen. We're there to buffer people, to take those horrible things that could happen and make them work. I had another one that was recent. This was kind of a crazy year last year, whose wife passed away during the transaction. That was tough. That was hard. That was heartbreaking. We were able to work through it. Again, the other side, I had the list again. And the buyers, I was able to explain them what was going on, and they worked with us to get through the transaction as compassionately as we could, but still move ahead. And the buyer was 9 months pregnant, so she wanted to hurry up and get in the house. But we had a spouse who had lost the love of their life during this whole transaction. It was difficult, but we're there. We're there to buffer. We're there to offer assistance. We're there to offer condolences. We're there to offer comfort. We're also there to get the job done. So I don't see agents going away anytime soon, whether it be a listing agent or buyer's agent. And we will get paid. It is just something that we need to talk to our clients about when we're doing that, when we're doing a listing agreement or we're doing a buyer brokerage agreement. I do have to say, Georgia, from my point of view, has been ahead of the game on the buyer brokerage agreement. We've always done a buyer brokerage agreement. We've always had the buyer brokerage agreement, I should say. There might be some agents who didn't do the buyer brokerage agreement, and that's on them. If you don't have a buyer's brokerage agreement and they decide they don't want to work with you, you don't get paid. So I always did a buyer's brokerage agreement, because if I was going to spend time with somebody and put my time and energy and my money into it, I want to make sure that I was going to get paid if the house closed. So for some people across the country, a buyer brokerage agreement might be something that's new. It's not difficult, buyers know you've got to get paid. It's just how are you going to get paid? And that we don't know yet. The way that it currently is, it's as usual. Maybe we'll see by midsummer if anything changes. But if anybody has any questions or anything, drop a question down below and I'll see if I can answer it for you. I may not be able to answer because, like I said, we don't have an answer yet from the court. And when we do, give me a few minutes to kind of digest it and figure out how that's going to affect you, how it's going to affect me, how it's going to affect our industry, and we'll go from there. I do have to say, I don't see prices of homes coming down because of this. I don't see who's going to save money, if anybody's going to save money. That's remains to be seen. I have no idea, but we'll see. And if you're a client of mine, or if you want to become a client of mine, we'll have that discussion. We'll have that very frank discussion on how we'll handle that. But again, any questions, put them down below. I'd be happy to answer them for you. Have a great evening, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.